What is going on, everyone? Welcome to a playoff edition of A Dave and a Dan. You guys spoke, or you guys typed, and here we are. You want to see some playoff episodes of A Dave and a Dan? Well, you got it. And you get dedication around the board from us. It's not just like, oh, yeah, me and Dave, we're going to just check. Okay, yeah, they want to do another. We'll put it up there. So, okay, that's fine. This show gets dedication from everyone, including our very own, coming to you live from a hotel. Do you have this type of dedication? Would you help somebody on a YouTube show where your house was about to go up in flames, but you're like, I got a Dave and a Dan to do. That's more important than saving my belongings, because we got Alex, who's fleeing the fires in Southern California. He made his way down to Anaheim. Alex, first of all, thank you for the dedication. Thank you for doing this for us, because you make life a lot easier for me. The fewer clicks for me, the more nonsense that can come out of my mouth. So I hope everything's fine for you down there. You can tell everybody. I didn't text you and see if you were all right. I said Dave and a Dan, 11:30 for you. Seriously, how many texts did you get from people worried?
I got so many texts.
And what was mine?
Andy's was 2 pictures to share on the show today and confirming the time was good. And I said, time should be fine, but just letting you know I'm checking into a hotel in Anaheim.
So Alex sees the skies turning black around him, but he's not the only one, because I sent him 2 pictures, and the sky was turning black for FanDuel and many sports books because of you guys out there. Good work. Anytime you guys beat a sports book, you deserve a little applause. And this was something that was sent to me yesterday. I found it rather fascinating. And you know I love the wording. Somebody had to concoct this wording. So FanDuel parent Flutter says it got hammered again on the NFL following its Q3 reporting on November 12th. And we'll get to that document in just a second. But the 2024-2025 Dan NFL season to date has been the most, we have to just replace customer-friendly, Dan year since the launch of online sports betting, with the highest rate of favorites winning in nearly 20 years. We kept saying, is this just like the craziest favorite Dan year in 10, 20, 30? Well, you got it right there. Since the inception of online sports betting, which obviously kicked these numbers way up, this has been the best year for you. So if you had a bad year this year and you're a guy who takes favorites, you're really going to need to figure out a new game plan. First of all, Dave, what's going on? Happy to see you're fine over there in Philly, although this will be a topic for another day. I saw on Twitter one of those, they're having a discussion about passion versus fans taking it too far after that Flyers fan just went down and absolutely cracked some Toronto Maple Leafs fan. But anyway, hello, first of all. Happy playoffs. And what do you think about those customer-friendly results that have
couple things. First off,
the sports
I'm glad I could join you. Happy playoffs to you guys as well, because you just reminded me to send some messages out to some friends in Southern California. Might not have happened otherwise. If they don't respond, well, we can only assume one thing, but I hope they do.
Anyway, going back to that document we were just talking about, we pulled it up quickly before we started recording, and then we were just like, let's record. Show them the official document. There's nothing funnier than this. Having to show your investor, whatever the hell the name of this company is, having to explain what a Dan year is in like standard official legal terms has to be one of the funniest jobs I've ever seen. Like, you basically just have to say, hey, there's these regular ass chalk bettors. They're just clicking front page favorites all the time, and you have to let them know they're clicking all these things, and for the first time in 20 years, they're actually winning a ton. And that's why you investors are actually having a bad year. But I promise you, if you wait, but these investors don't know sports betting. They were probably like, I don't want to get involved with this to begin with. I feel like many investors in sports books are skeptical to begin with. It's like telling your parents you're going to be a professional sports bettor. I know Dave's parents probably were in love with the idea. Many aren't until you kind of show some proof. This is like a professional sports bettor coming back after 1 year saying, look, I lost 90 grand this year, but I promise you got to understand, I have a philosophy. It's going to win in the long run. That's right here, Dave telling his parents, we just lost 90,000 in the first year, but don't worry, things are going to be fine in 5. And it's a pretty hilarious doc here that we were looking at before.
Can you imagine, like, if you're an investor, but you're, like you said, you kind of just get dragged into this, hey, it's a good idea, people you trust, and you see this document. Now, you don't understand the intricacies of sports betting. You don't understand sports betting at all. And you read the customer-friendly results generated an estimated adverse gross gaming revenue impact of $438 million. Now, their first thought might be, yeah, but don't most companies want their customers to be happy? Customer friendly sounds good to me. No, no, not with us. Not with us. And
We want those unfriendly customer results.
yeah, exactly. And then the second paragraph, the transitory nature of these results has no impact on the underlying assumptions and guidance expectations communicated at our investor day in September, which, by the way, they're right. Like they're ultimately going to be right. But imagine, again, being kind of, I don't like to use the uneducated investor because these guys generally, you would think they do their homework, but still not fully comprehending how the gaming industry works. It's like, what do you mean it doesn't affect it? And then the first paragraph going from bottom to top, following our Q3 earnings, Andy, on November 12th, continued strong. Like the way that they had to phrase this is so good. Continued strong U.S. player momentum has been offset by a period of very unfavorable U.S. sports results across the remainder of November and December, primarily. Oh, we didn't talk about this pre-show on NFL parlay and same game parlay. So this isn't even just favorite.
Parlay? Wow.
I didn't even see that part. So it isn't just favorites. They're paying out big time same game parlay, 6-leg first
Mike Evans to break the record and Bucks to win. They all cashed. Broncos to win. Cortland Sutton to go over. They hit their milestones. Yo, Dan's, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing to celebrate your triumph and dominance? You got a corporation on their knees saying customer-friendly results, and you are that customer looking down at them. So I really do want to congratulate you, while I will scoff at the long-term prospects of being a Dan the same way they're not worried about the long-term prospects of Dan screwing them. I really hope you guys are basking in it. I am happy for you. People with more change in their pockets tend to leave more pleasant comments. So I hope for that for you. I hope you guys continue to eat.
Andy, just real quickly, can I just pose a thought to you I think you'll appreciate?
Of course.
If you go on Twitter, how many people are out there, promoting like these wild Discord packages, the VIP picks and everything, right? And then they'll showcase a 100-to-1 win or something like that.
Yeah.
How many people are going to get a massive influx of subscribers after this NFL season, the most popular U.S. betting sport that there is by a mile, because they hit the 7-leg anytime touchdown prop, right? Or they hit the first touchdown scores on a 6-legger or this or that. You get, and then just get absolutely mauled next year. And I don't hope that upon anybody, but you can't sustain a sun run like that. It's impossible. Yeah. But when people see that, man, it's like moths to a flame.
Unfortunately, man, Woo! Unfortunately, and I'm being dead honest with all you guys, if you want to listen to something, this is going to be, and thank God you just brought that up. It's a gold rush for crooks.
100%. 100%.
Because really, I've seen this myself when it comes to sports betting Twitter, which I want to see less of. I want 65% funny stuff, 10% interesting stuff. The rest you can show me sports betting Twitter. Sure. But because I have so many people interacting with me on sports betting posts, I see more than I actually want to. And the things that get ultra blown up are these absurd, as I like to call, they're even worse than pirate parlays. I don't know what's worse than a pirate, but it's crazy moonshot, rags to riches. I want to own the Bellagio, Ocean's 12 robbery. Those kind of parlays get blown up into all these retweets. Meanwhile, you have Dave's coworker, Greg, who shows an exact chart. You got like 15 picks every day. Here's how you grow a bankroll. He's slowly and surely doing it. He's showing you every single pick. You want to know how many retweets that gets? I don't want to say because I'm embarrassed to let you know. This thing should be leading Twitter every single day. And is this me promoting it? Is Greg going to kick me a couple shekels for saying this? No, I'm just not surprised, but kind of disgusted that actually it's something I always know. I've had people comment on my videos, Andy, I'm always here to watch the opening, to have a laugh or two, and then I just click right to the Pirate Parlay section and just see what you put in and put that in. People just, they want that rags to riches. I guess I can't blame them, but you're going to leave yourself susceptible if you see somebody hit this moonshot and then you go to the Discord. And I know you're probably thinking, this guy has a Patreon. First of all, I always tell you guys, if you guys want to be the lone supporter of my show, there are no Nestle Crunch logos, so if you guys want to join, but then just like Greg, I give my NHL parlay spreadsheet, which has been unbelievably profitable. Hopefully it continues to work out, but that's it. You're not going to be, I'm never going to give you a 10 first goal score type of thing. These people are going to have something blow up infinitely. If you have any discipline, don't do that. And am I trying to hurt some other guy's business? I would say yeah. I mean, because it's overwhelmingly likely that guy's going to be a fraud. But suit yourself, find out yourself. It's going to, these type of results, I mean, you should be fine on your own. Enough Dans to go around. You don't need some random guy's Discord to tell you you're, plus 11,000 same game parlay.
And for what it's worth, those are still fun. I still do. Like I do each week, I'll do like a touchdown round robin. Why not? But it's a tiny, tiny piece of the bankroll. So like, this isn't to say don't have some fun. Plus, if you're ever worried about getting limited, it's a decent way to, at least this is my belief, because there's no real proof of this. We don't know what the gaming overseers up in the sky, we don't really know what it is that like the gaming board and stuff. Like I've asked questions, but what I'm saying is it can keep your account in good health.
No, you can keep going on that thought. I always picture a guy who, like, from a movie, you see like the corner of his head and only his hand, like Dr. Claw. That's who's deciding these things.
Exactly. So when I've emailed.
You see this glove. You see like this glove controlling.
And it's just like all you see is it hitting a red button.
There goes Dave's account.
Yeah. I've emailed them out of curiosity before, like PointsBet nukes an account after 3 days, 3 bets, and now it's, what are they now, Fanatics? And I'd asked them, I was like, hi, can you please provide me with more information on why this is? And they're like, no, it's our gaming board. We are not in contact with them. It's like, we can't ask them questions. We cannot speak to them. They can deliver us the news. And aside from that, there is zero contact. I got an email from Fanatics when they changed over to PointsBet that essentially, and I'm paraphrasing, was like, hey, pal, don't bother. Like, don't bother. We can't tell you why. And this isn't just me. This is so many people, right? Like, I'm not special. You've gotten the same stuff. They're just like, don't bother. And they won't tell you why. So, yeah, it's great.
Here's my advice. I just gave you guys advice on people who, trying to promote their products with 50. Here's my advice when it comes to that. If you've become so good at this, you're starting to get limited. I live my life playing screw job prevent defense. If you think that I'm not prepared for those type of things to happen, you can use your mind as to how I would go about mitigating being limited on all those sites. I'll leave it to your imagination.
Yeah, don't divulge too much.
No. No, but there are ways. There are ways to circumnavigate that. Are you listening, you pricks? Good, I hope you are.
All of the legal ways, though. Start throwing some bets in there, like bet on some sides instead of just props, right? Like bet on some long shot parlays.
We call those decoy. Yeah, decoy bets. Put in that. You guys like a money line parlay. Let's go. Let's talk about some of the games we can put in a decoy money line parlay this weekend.
Let's do it. Actually, I love it. And I will bet this.
Perfect. Before that, I just want to talk about last week quickly. There was some good, some bad, and I'll wrap it up quickly. I leaked the script for the Bengals. I gave you all, I said everything you needed to know. Bengals are going to take out the Steelers, and then all their fans are going to be in absolute misery and shambles when they realize that the Jets were able to beat the Dolphins, something that we talked about here. And then it's going to be the Chiefs that undoes them. The only part I got half wrong there was that I thought it would be more of a heartbreaking, depressing loss where the Chiefs were somewhat close, and then it happened in like the fourth quarter. They took the first drive down, 7-0, never looked back. Chiefs barely even got a first down. So if you are a Bengals fan, you know it feels infinitely better when you knew you didn't have hope, because as they say in Shawshank, hope could kill a man. Now, where the bad part came in, but I am still going to take some solace. This Vikings-Detroit game, Detroit, like, I don't know, they sold their soul to put in one good defensive performance that you know is absolutely not going to be sustainable. God, this kills me to say, I was wrong on how Darnold played, although the true villain on the Vikings' part, in my opinion, was their offensive supposed genius play caller. It made zero sense to me. Detroit was they're just sending the house pretty much every single play that there was going to be a passing down, because they know they don't have the horses. And the response for the Vikings was to not call any screens, not call any blitz beaters, continue to run intermediate to deep routes, because they just couldn't get off the idea of hitting Addison and Jefferson for deeper passes. And it was befuddling to me that they just kept doing it after the first half, where they saw the game plan. That's what they're going to do. They're going to try to get to Darnold before anything could even develop down the field. They ran one screen with Jones. It went for like 25 yards. Never again. I just do not understand what the hell their thought was there. And then on the other side, I saw, if you show me the first 6 drives of Jared Goff, was it 6 points? And was it 2 interceptions? And then in the second half, a pick 6 drop? If you don't think that team is not vulnerable, see, you're going to look at the end of it. They got their act together in the second half and put up some points on the board. You're literally talking about a 3-point game, 0 touchdowns thrown, 2 interceptions.
Yeah.
And if there's any sort of pocket collapsing, the Detroit Lions are finished. And I maintain what I said. And I also am going to back up what I said. Last week I said I'll give $1,000 too, and I couldn't think of something. So the YouTube commenters, you know, they're always good for some suggestions, some a lot better than others. The one that I enjoyed the most, which is in my nature of kind of the way my mind works, somebody said, why don't you buy, if the Detroit, I was going to say Red Wings, the Detroit Lions win the Super Bowl, buy the most expensive donkey costume known to man, and do one extra episode with Dave, even if it's very short, and talk about, just admit that I was an absolute donkey. And if you guys know me, I don't like doing this. When I filmed that thing at MSG where they wanted to talk about the bad Santa story, if you know my stuff, you know how we did that whole thing that they did a documentary on MSG about the bad Santa. Well, they wanted me to dress up like Santa Claus for the recreation of it, and I refused. I'm like, as an older guy, I'm not allowing you to dress me up like Santa Claus, and I know it's going to be on the thumbnail. I know you're going to use that for the thumbnail. I refused. So I did it without dressing as Santa, but my 2 friends did. What's on the thumbnail? 2 assholes dressed as Santa and me refusing to dress as Santa. So mission accomplished. I don't like looking like an imbecile. I don't feeling like an imbecile. If Detroit wins this Super Bowl and they get a free buy, they get a buy now, I'm going to purchase the most expensive donkey costume I can find. That's under $1,000, and come on here and tell you how much I am a donkey, and I will use that picture of me as a donkey. So, you know, who knows? 2 years from now, there might be an Instagram model. She's interested in me, and she's DMing with me like, oh my God, this guy, he's not so bad. And then she YouTubes me and sees that picture of me as a donkey, and then I'm out of contention with her. Maybe that will happen, but that's what I'm willing to put on the line. Maybe it doesn't mean a lot to you, but trust me, it means a lot to me. So I'm purchasing a donkey costume, and I'm going to call myself an absolute donkey if the Detroit Lions win the Super Bowl, and it will be in that thumbnail. Is that fair, Dave? Is that a good punishment?
Yeah, I'm on board. Sounds good to me. And I'll be.
I know you have to invest a lot in that. I know.
Yeah, I'll be tuning in, no less. But Sam Darnold sucked last game. He was no good. I thought your read was right on that. I like Minnesota too. you were getting them at one point. It was 3.5, I think. So I don't know. They just ended up not being good, and Sam Darnold ended up like there was a point where they kicked two. They were 2 field goals in like goal to go situations, right? They were inside the 5, inside the 10, maybe, and then another one where they didn't convert on 4th down. But however it played out, they would have been up like
Yeah.
11-10 or something had they not botched so many of the. Didn't they had like four not plays, but 4 possessions, I think, inside the 10 within the first like 30 minutes of the game or something.
Detroit just used their Paul Walker Nas on defense, and that's it. Like they showed all their tricks. They showed what they can do with the makeshift defense, how they're going to approach good offenses. What happened to them at the hands of the Bills is going to happen to them at some point, whether it's round 2 after the bye, round 3, or even in the Super Bowl against a team like the Bills or against a team like Mahomes, who's, I'm not even going to get into this. I'll deal with the consequences if they lose, but let's talk about some of these games here on the opening wildcard week. I got to admit, there are some games I don't even want to watch. I don't want to see Bo Nix in the playoffs. I didn't.
Really?
I don't want to see this
I think
guy
all
in the
of
playoffs.
these games are kind of good, but as a betting man, maybe that's the way I see it through a different lens.
But I'm not excited. If the Bengals had played the Bills, that's a game I am thoroughly excited. It may as well. I'll be as excited as watching like the Bills playing the Chiefs a couple weeks from now if that ends up happening. Or next week, theoretically, if the favorites win, if the Ravens play the Bills. Instead, I'm going to watch Bo Nix lose one way or another.
So do you like the Bills
plays well
in that game? Like, do you like this as a potential route?
I'm not willing to say that because I know the nature of these games. I'm willing to say it's going to be a rout. All I'm saying is I'm not excited to watch Bo Nix, and when all is said and done, I think a rookie's going to lose on the road.
Yeah,
in round 1 of the playoffs.
Not just a rookie, but like Sean Payton's a very good coach, right? And Vance Joseph's a very, very good defensive coordinator too, and we've seen that all season long, right? However, look at the inexperience, and maybe this won't matter. Sometimes teams just surprise you, but the level of inexperience, postseason inexperience for these starters is pretty crazy, right? I mean, none of them, right? But a lot of them have never tasted playoffs, and now you're going into Buffalo. Forget about the cold weather. That's kind of a non-factor here. It's not even going to be that bad. But you're going into Buffalo to face the Bills, who like year over year have tried to grind this out and keep losing to the Chiefs in these heartbreaking games. I do think this is one of those games where I probably wouldn't bet it. This is the way I felt with Tampa. I don't know if I threw it out on this show, but we bet the alt spread at minus 19.5. See, I like to have some fun.
This is them laying off the ban button on you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And then it hit, which is a good thing. So they're like, oh, he's just going to keep doing this. But no, I think this could be one of those spots where you maybe just, at the very least, entertain an alt line, Andy. What I mean is maybe Bo Nix surprises, and maybe Sean Payton and Joseph have these guys ready to go. But I think there's also a very realistic possibility, very realistic outcome where they just get routed. And I'm not willing to say that's the way it goes, but I think more so than other type of games, this could be one where you look back and you're like, wow, 30-3, huh? And you go, I kind of get it.
The way the Bills play, it's been so machine-like this year. Mm-hmm. It didn't matter if they were playing KC. It didn't matter if it was that fourth or the third or fourth
or who was injured or not. They were down so many pass catchers.
Going into that game in Detroit, any game that they showed up for, because I think after some of the big wins they kind of were slow, which during a long regular season that's somewhat to be expected. But it's like, you don't get those random blow-up games from Josh Allen where he has like 3 turnovers. And if that's not the case, and you're just getting what we've seen from Josh Allen this year, you're probably going to get a waxing because there hasn't been any defense good enough to stop what he's brought to the table. And the only way you're going to win a game like this is how the Steelers can maybe beat Baltimore, where that D is definitely going to hold that opposing quarterback, which the Steelers have done, multiple times to Lamar. But we just haven't seen any indication that the Bills are going to be able to be clamped down to that degree, especially at home in Buffalo. So maybe the one thing that will slow down the Bills is that Allen didn't play last week. Sometimes when you see a guy doesn't play, maybe the first quarter they get out to like a slow start, and we know Denver does have a good defense. But even having somebody like Patrick Surtain, the Bills are that team that means zero against. From the way they run their offense,
exactly.
They don't even have a true number one receiver. Sometimes it's Coleman. They still have Amari Cooper there. They love going over the middle with Shakir, and now they have a pretty healthy Kincaid, who I truly think Allen likes to go to in crunch situations because he has that ability to get open like versus linebackers. I would be interested in his prop due to how his numbers were really nothing along the stretch, but if you look in big, important games, he likes going to Kincaid. You can look at some of his playoff numbers from last year, and if you remember last year down the stretch, they ran it a ton. So for him to have a couple good playoff games, can you check that for me, Alex? Can you check the Dalton Kincaid prop? My guess is it's going to be in the 30s, and I would absolutely like that.
Yeah, that probably makes sense.
Yeah, so I'm in on this. I'm in on this.
33 and a half? That's fine. Yeah.
If I lose, I lose.
No, I don't have an issue with it. It's really just a matter, and it's like there's so many different mouths to feed, from Shakir to Cooper to Cook to Ty Johnson to Dalton Kincaid to Keon Coleman, to Mac Hollins if he's out there. But at 33 and a half, I don't think it's a bad number. I'm always hesitant on these spots because like there's games where one guy just happens to have the day, like remember that game where Amari was targeted, 14 times, and then he didn't see a single target the next game? Very unpredictable offense, which could actually, to your point, give Denver some problems.
So you are correct, but it's for the specific opponent, which is why I'm targeting guys who are running over the middle.
Sure. Yeah.
So one wide receiver, probably not going to get many looks. One of the players who's playing out wide, probably not getting many looks versus Surtain. So now we condense that down a little more. I don't know. Maybe it's a calculated sniff. We will see if it plays out that way. Anything else within this game that kind of stood out to you when you were analyzing it? Because you would think running backs, I'll tell you, the Bills use way more of a rotation than you would think.
They do, but I'm not convinced they will. Like last year in the postseason, James Cook saw a strong amount of work. They wanted to run the football. And that was with, I think it was 15. Ty Johnson in 2 games still getting like 15 total carries, 8 and 7, which is pretty significant. I actually have some interest in James Cook in a game like this.
Do you know, I know my favorite future was the James Cook over 3.5 rushing touchdowns. That was the season-long prop. 3.5. He ended up leading the NFL in touchdowns. Number one.
That is the most insensible thing I've ever seen. I don't get it at all. I really don't. It was a great find by you. Look, if you're willing to sit around all season and wait for those to pay out, you're going to find some truly insane opportunities. Like the one I grabbed earlier in the year, Aaron Jones had a rushing yard prop of 720. So I get that you're baking injury into it, but there was zero chance that they were going to bring this guy on and not have him just get the ball. He finished with over 1,100.
How about this one? This is just hysterical. Only available on, I think, one site, because for some reason they weren't doing receptions on many sportsbooks. Michael Pittman, who was the starter going into this year?
Yeah, Richardson.
What do you think they set his catches at? You're gonna die laughing.
70.
95.5.
No, they didn't.
I have proof. I have screenshot. I uploaded it.
I said 70, thinking that might be high. 95, and they thought Pittman was going to pace 100-yard season.
Well, because of what he did with Minshew. all of a sudden he look like, if you look at his last couple of years, he's like 100 catch guy playing with the quarterback who completes passes at like 45%.
That's wild.
Isn't
By the
that
way,
insane?
I said 70 without looking. He finished with 69 this year, so not far off. It's
There you go.
95.5 is crazy.
I would have loved to know what those receptions would be without the Flacco games too, because he had like 8 in the last game.
We may, you know what? Let's keep this up here. When we get props released, we should do a couple prop shows. That would be fun, like a future.
We 1,000% are.
Yeah, and
1,000.
this is also and I'm willing to fire on some parlays. They are the most minus EV thing you could ever do, like parlaying individual player future props because just of injuries, across the season. But there is nothing more fun.
You gotta keep that account healthy.
Flowing.
That's what we call it. We got to keep that account healthy.
That's right.
We got to keep it healthy.
Right.
Minus EV is the way to be when it comes to being healthy on your accounts.
Well, that'll be fun. I'm actually already looking forward to that. So sometime in like July or whatever it is, we'll jump on.
It does feel good though. At the end of the year, if you just like dieting or something, I had a bunch of money hit the accounts this last week. I go, did I win a huge bet or something?
It's the best. Yeah. Same thing with best ball, right? Because with best ball, you kind of like, oh, wow, I didn't know that was there. It's a good feeling. Why don't sports books allow you to hide bets in your bet slip that are like futures bets? There's nothing that drives me more insane than going through my bet slip and just seeing this slew of open bets for the entirety of the season.
Yeah, all you have to do is make a third thing that says futures, and then they'll all be over there.
What, on your bet, like on the sports book?
Like, so on Caesars, for example, there's open bets,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just on a tab, and then on the right tab, just futures bets, and it's going to categorize all the futures on that one thing. So when you go to your open bets,
still always be on the open tabs bet?
Well, what I'm saying is when you enter a futures bet from that tab, it will automatically. It won't count as like an open bet. It will count as
nice.
the
Does
futures tab.
DraftKings and FanDuel have that though?
No, 0 people have that. That's just something that I'm just saying I would do
if
I was running.
I was like, how did I miss this? Yes, exactly. That's what I'm saying. I want to be able to move them the futures so I don't have to look at them all, especially ones that are just
Dave,
dead, like
you're posing a problem, and all I'm doing is offering a solution. That's it.
Right.
That's it.
Right. And look, the solution is very simple. You just have an ability to move them to another. Nothing worse than having to look at ones that you know are dead. Like you have an over and the guy gets hurt in the second week of the season, breaks his feet. Nothing worse. Anyway, what game do you like?
We both have the Bills. So we both have the Bills covering if we had to choose.
Yes, but like I said, I haven't bet this game. I think I'm going to search around for some odds and see if I can find an alt spread because this could be one of those weird games that stays more competitive. And in that case, it's like, okay, I never would have won this bet anyway. But that would be one. I have a spot that I like, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this one.
I feel like we should go to the Steelers Ravens next.
Oh, go ahead.
Just because like we kind of just briefly mentioned it, and I don't
go
know
ahead.
why
Sure.
it feels
We'll
like
come back to that.
it feels like they're lumped in together because like I feel like the winners are probably going to play each other.
Sure, let's do it.
Likely, because this one. So the dynamic here is, if you're pro Pittsburgh, you're saying they always play the Ravens tough. The defense always gives Lamar problems, and they can kind of keep this one competitive. The flip side is the Steelers, that defense, the one that's going to have to be responsible for either keeping them close or winning the game, has been a shell of what it was earlier in the year. So which way do you go? Looking at this spread, for me, it's just too many points. And until he earns my trust come playoff time, I just can't click Lamar in these playoff games against good defenses for a huge spread like that. Even against Houston last year in that opening game, you were sweating out a big spread after, like, by halftime, or it wasn't some runaway blowout. And then we obviously know what happened the following week. It's just too many games with him, and I could be wrong, but if I had to give it a click, I would go with the 9.5.
I actually like the under 43.5 here.
fully okay with that, because it ain't like Pittsburgh is lighting up the score
No,
the stat sheet. What is it called in football?
Scoreboard. The scoreboard.
Yeah, I'm so used to in the NHL saying it's like you're not going to find their name on the stat sheet, but yeah, so it's not like you're going to see them kind of run up tallies on that scoreboard.
Yeah,
especially the way they've been
14
playing.
points per game over their last 4. Granted, they faced the Eagles, they faced Baltimore, they faced Kansas City, they faced the desperate Cincy team. But this offense is bad, dude. This offense is struggling right now. George Pickens, I mentioned this in one of my videos yesterday on OddsShopper, the picks for every game. Like he's one bad miscommunication away from pulling an Antonio Brown and just leaving.
Or a Tyreek Hill, as we're finding out this morning.
Yeah, it's crazy. He's one of my favorite players. I love that he's a menace. You can only have so many of these in football, or else it'll just turn into, it'll devolve into madness. But a select few can make the game a whole lot better. And in my opinion, his antics, I wouldn't want him on the Eagles, but I love watching him in Pittsburgh. But right now, there's some problems happening out there. With that in mind, though, Lamar has always had some trouble with the Steelers. I know last game he didn't, but they split this series, right? The Steelers won, held him to, I think it was 17 points earlier in the season. The offense for Pittsburgh is struggling, but defensively, I still think there is a path to them keeping this game close enough. And Zay Flowers, they still have plenty of weapons. I know that. I'm not going to ignore that. There's just no way this guy plays this week, right? Like
correct.
The report on him, I found it to be comical. It was, fortunately, this was the report out of Baltimore. He did not suffer a season-ending injury. He's day to day. So what do you mean? What do you
mean?
Out. He didn't suffer. If you have to actually mention that it wasn't season-ending, in the same sentence, day to day should not be included, right? So I don't think he plays. Oh, and last thing, Lamar, I looked this up yesterday. I was going through Lamar's never played in a postseason game that's gone over the total.
That kind of feeds into what I was saying about him versus good defense come playoff time. Look, eventually people start to slay their demons. You keep making the playoffs, you'll eventually have a couple performances that go the other way. That's a pretty good sample size. He's been in the league a while. And while people applaud, and I actually was impressed by the passing stats this year, I wasn't sure of what they were until they popped at the end of the year. I was like, wow, that is actually pretty crazy. But the same thing with NHL guys, like soft players who can pop in 40, but then when the rules kind of change and they let more clutching and grabbing go come playoff times, they'll go 8-10 games without a goal. He is the football version of that until I see otherwise. And that doesn't just mean winning this one. That means going into Buffalo, where he went once and lost once, or going into the Chiefs and taking care of them, who he's like 1-5 against. If you see him rattle off like 3 straight, then he has slayed the demons. But I don't like to be the guy to try to predict the first time demon slaying. I'm usually, until somebody beats Mike Tyson in Punch-Out, I usually think they're going to lose along the way to somebody like Soda Popinski. Do you have no clue what I'm talking about? Well, you can A, Google it, or we can B, go on to the next game. I suggest B. Let's go on to that one that Dave was talking about, or he wanted to talk about. Harbaugh, Herbert versus the Texans. If there's a 2.5 out there, you guys know my season-long policy. I think I saw 2.5 somewhere. If there's a 2.5, I'm going Chargers. I have full faith in Herbert. I have even more faith in Harbaugh. And I have zero faith in C.J. Stroud. So that, without being overly analytical and saying, oh, well, this defense handles the run back. I've seen C.J. Stroud this year, and as you take away these weapons, they've been just less and less effective. Joe Mixon's early season, whatever you want to call that we didn't see in Cincy for years, it seemed to slow down toward the end of the year. And as a running back who's been in the league like 6 to 7, 8 years, you would expect something like that. But I think the Chargers are set up well to win this game. I think the Chargers are set up well to go on a weird run that could easily end in Kansas City. But I see them winning this game. And I see them giving KC fits because they never get blown out and every game comes down to within a field goal, but without getting ahead of myself. I like the Chargers at 2.5 if I can find them at 2.5.
I don't blame you. There are 2.5s out there, but you pay a little extra for it. I think I would pay a little extra for it too, instead of grabbing the 3. Like FanDuel
Does
has
that help the
-1.
account health?
Yeah.
Does it? If you take a minus
probably,
2 and
probably not. Nah, probably not. I don't mind Houston +3 though. I really don't.
That's the smart play, but I just can't do it for this one.
No, I get. You know why though? The more I looked at this game, like I said last week that because one of my favorite bets last week, and I got a decent amount wrong, mostly on the favorites. From the video, I didn't bet a lot of those, but if I'm giving them out in the video, it's still, and I tell people if I'm betting them or not. But still, I still have to give one out. And there were some spots that just ended up being wrong for sure. But this was my favorite spot on the week. I hit Ben up with it earlier in the week. I was like, you got to bet this. Texans were minus half a point in the first half. You were getting it +118, right? At plus money. You knew DeMeco Ryans was highly unsatisfied with the way his team has played. They were coming off a drubbing on Christmas Day. If there's nothing I love more than betting on a team who just got blown out on national television, right? Like that. And historically, those have performed well. I don't know about the national television part, but the blowout part, unless you're the Tennessee Titans, and they were just atrocious. I think they finished 2-15 against the spread. But I mentioned last week, I want to see Houston get out to a good start. I think they will, and I think what happens is if they have one good drive, they score, DeMeco Ryans pulls them. If it takes them the whole first half to get things going, they go the whole first half. Basically, preseason mentality. That's what happened. And I know it was against a bad team, but I look at this and I go, all right, the Chargers, who both of us have liked all season, we talked about it in week 1.
Oh, hey, that was the futures cash that I told you about, +280 to be a wild card team.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I grabbed the alt over win total at 10.5. So yeah, right in the ballpark there. They don't have a run game at all, and the defense is suspect. They're good, but they're not as good as just like the surface numbers would tell you when you look at the opponents they faced all season. They also have a lot of inexperience in the secondary. So do I trust CJ Stroud? No. Do I like that Tank Dell is out? No, none of that. Do I like that they can't block for CJ Stroud? Obviously not. But they are a home team in the postseason as a 3-point dog. And that's kind of what it boils down to for me. Like, you're still a 3-point home dog in the playoffs. So that would be my spot this week.
How many straight postseasons, I think in maybe a minimum 10 years, do the Texans open up with the early Saturday game? It's unbelievable. I remember like that
That's
Bengals.
The Chiefs game.
I think it was it Bengals, like Andy Dalton versus not Davis Mills. They had a replacement quarterback in for Matt Schaub. Every single year, if the Texans make it, they're opening it up on
That's
Saturday.
a great point.
It's pretty.
No one wants to watch them, I guess.
It's every year. Every year
right.
they make it. Brock Osweiler, whoever, it's always the first Saturday game. So you guys can let me know which year
point.
I am incorrect about. How many touches did J.K. Dobbins get last week?
I think he had 18 carries. But
so
again,
that means they're willing to ride him fully now that it counts, and there is no knee limitations after that kind of multi-week absence.
But Gus Edwards was out the last 2 weeks, so we'd have to pay attention to that as well. I don't think Kamani Vidal gets any work in a game like this, but in a meaningful game. But if Gus Edwards is back, then I'm not as convinced that that's not some type of a split.
What do they got on J.K. Dobbins' rushing yards? There you go, Alex. That's good stuff. That's slightly too high for my liking.
But I think 62.5 actually looks pretty where it should be. I'm not in love with that. Not because he's not going to get the work. This team can't run block. I mean, their run game's pretty bad. Ever since, remember the first couple games of the season where everyone's like, whoa, J.K. Dobbins is back, myself included. They've completely fallen off a cliff since those first couple of games. One was against like the Panthers and maybe another against the Raiders or something, whatever it was. They've collapsed since then.
We got Packers, Eagles, any one of those other teams. I feel like the Eagles kind of would have waxed. The Packers have that weird team of a kind of mobile quarterback. Now, I know they lost one of their receivers, but just a multitude of options where, you go ahead, take one out. It's not like he has any particular favorites other than sometimes Jaden Reed. It's kind of look at the spread. The Eagles are probably the best team in the NFC. They probably are. From top to bottom, when you look at a team like them potentially playing the Lions, there couldn't be a worse matchup. They'll just control the clock. They can run it a ton. They have a good defense. They're probably one of the few defensive lines that can get through. Yet I just don't like this matchup for them, hence that 4.5 point spread.
I think if you have to force Jordan Love to throw a lot, it's a problem for the Packers.
Yeah.
They've leaned heavily on the ground game with Josh Jacobs over the second half of the season, and it's paid significant dividends. I don't love this game, though. And this is an Eagles fan, putting bias aside. I don't love this game. Jalen Hurts is going to be back. I do think there's a pretty significant imbalance of talent, though. Jair Alexander was placed on the IR. He just can't get right. Christian Watson is out. Do I think that's a huge deal? No, not really. They can, like you said, it's just a carousel of players there. Romeo Dobbs is back, so that's no big deal. Metaphorical gun to the head, I would go Eagles here, just because I think they're a more complete football team.
I guess maybe this is the invented term rat sniffer in me. I just don't like this number, and something's telling. For weeks I've been saying Eagles are going to crush anyone as long as they don't play the Packers, and then it's just going to be this weird. It's just going to be weird. I can see it.
Like I wanted them to face Washington. I think they would have, especially with Washington.
They would have won by 35 points if they played
having Washington beat them a couple weeks ago with Jalen Hurts going down, and that team. That if you're the Commanders, that is the last team you want to face, and fortunately they don't. But they face the Bucs. And that is a fun game right there.
Yeah, let's go to that one. Now, this is the scam game I don't even really want to watch.
Really?
These are two non-playoff teams to me.
No way, man. The Bucs are no. Don't insult my Bucs. Don't do it.
I know, they're a lot better than one would think.
Baker Mayfield's the man. He's so. I know he gets picked off from time to time, but he has been so much better than anybody could have imagined this year. I'm not saying put him in the running for the MVP, but can we at least appreciate what he was able to do? Not only did they go on to win the 6 of their last 7 games, right? After a 4-game losing streak where it wasn't even his fault. Baltimore lost, Atlanta lost. That was that crazy game with Atlanta. Kansas City lost, but they took them to overtime. San Francisco lost in the final moments of that game. They didn't have Godwin or Evans, and they were missing, I don't know if it was Gedeke, they were missing several top defenders and an offensive lineman for those games. Baker Mayfield still managed to throw 4,500 yards and 41 touchdowns, having, let's say, a quarter of the season without both Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. And then all I'm saying is this guy really put on a show. And early in the season, when their defense was banged up and terrible, he still kept them afloat. Let's not forget, they beat the Detroit Lions, right? They beat the Lions, handed them one of only 2 losses. They crushed the Eagles. Eagles were shorthanded, but still, they crushed the Eagles. They took the Chiefs to overtime, and then they killed the Chargers in L.A. I think this is actually a better.
This is by far his most impressive year, and it's thoroughly impressive. Last year, it seemed like they brought him in and say, "Hey, just run the ball a ton, use your receivers." They got the wild card with a bad record for the most part.
He was competing with Kyle Trask in
last year I would have said, okay, they kind of nursed him and babied him to that kind of. But this year was completely different. He earned every bit of credit that he's getting. Absolutely, it's just hard to. They needed a week and a half ago, they needed the awful Atlanta Falcons to lose just to get that spot back. So it's both of these teams nobody looks at as Super Bowl contenders. And if you have two teams who people don't believe has any chance of winning a Super Bowl, then it's a scam playoff matchup, at least in my eyes. But go ahead. What do you love up in
I
here?
just think the Bucks are the type of team that could either, they could have an early exit, sure. But I also like they're the type of team that could lose this game and you forget about them, right? Off into the ether. Or they're the type of team that I could see competing with the Lions squad or with the Eagles. Absolutely. I mean,
definitely.
Look,
I don't disagree.
Todd Bowles absolutely knows how to put Jalen Hurts' brain into a pretzel. Like when that team, the blitz, the heavy blitz rate, and then against Detroit, we've seen it as well. Even last year against Detroit, that was a one-score game at the end of it. And yeah, I know that Detroit won. It might look convincingly, but I remember that game. That game was competitive. So this is the type of team that could lose to the Cowboys like they did in Week 16 and therefore lose to Washington this week. If they get past this week, though, I'm not saying they go on to win the Super Bowl. I just think they're one of those sneaky teams that can, if it's the right day, Tampa's the type of team that can compete with anybody right now.
We call them a mercenary. I fully agree with you. So I would expect them to win this game. And then they're that type of team who can have themselves an unbelievable week and do the dirty work for another team. Like, let's say you're the Lions. You want to make the Super Bowl. You don't want to play the Eagles. And then they seem like the team that will mercenary a team like the Eagles with one incredible week and then just catch a beating in that NFC chip. I've seen that so many times in so many sports. And so many times it lets a team who hasn't been able to get over the hump because they're not forced to confront the situation that always gets rid of them. And I do see these Bucks as a potential mercenary team, but not a team that can go all the way. So I like them in this game.
So do I. Yeah, so do I. And I'll just take I hate to be the let me lean on one thing, but I'll take the experience in a spot like this. This is a team that was in the postseason last year, went to the divisional round. They had a nice draw against the Eagles. The Eagles limped into the postseason, but still, they flattened them. It's just I like the experience on a team like this. Todd Bowles has a lot. Not to say that Dan Quinn has never seen playoffs, but you know what I'm saying. It's a game where I do like the Bucks.
Of all the teams to expose the pass defense of the Bucks, which is what you have to do, I don't look at Washington as one of the teams that's just gonna do that to the fullest. Not with their weapons. I mean, McLaurin's coming off, I think, one of his worst couple of weeks of the season in back-to-back weeks. So it's not like they have this plethora of weapons getting open in the secondary. So you're talking about Jaden Daniels potentially running a lot, and the run game, who I always talk about with the Bucks. I don't know how for 10 straight years they stopped so many running backs. I think this is a very good matchup for the Bucks. I think they're able to win it. And then does that leave us just with the Monday night game?
Yeah, I kind of like the Rams.
Not to sound like an absolute fraud, I'm going to go with the Vikings. Not just because they lost last week, but I look at them the same way I look at Detroit and the Eagles, like the big three who can go to the Super Bowl, with the Vikings just like a slight half hair. They're 1.5s opposed to true ones in terms of the rankings of who can go to the Super Bowl. That was as ugly as a game as I think you could see from them. I think the conditions, I mean, another indoor game, if Darnold shits the bed in this one, I'm going to have to really take that one on the chin. Have the Rams really been playing well?
No,
Cooper Kupp looks worse than either of us out there at this point. And so it's all Puka all the time.
Matthew Stafford hasn't played all that well either. I will say, though, Sam Darnold's never been in the postseason before. Well, that's not fair. He has with San Francisco, but he didn't start. He's never been there. Yeah. Right. I think he's taken 2 career playoff snaps. It doesn't count. Clearly low pressure situation. This guy has never started in the postseason. And maybe this is a flat out overreaction to last week, but last week was a postseason game.
Yeah.
By every metric, obviously outside of the fact that nobody's eliminated, home field advantage, number 1 overall seed, home field advantage through the postseason. And you've got the 1 seed with home field advantage. You get just everything about it while the other falls to the 5 seed. And they had every shot early on that game, and the defense put them in fortuitous spots as well to really make something happen. Shout out to Brian Flores. We all know he runs a great defense. Kevin O'Connell's great. But I think the X factor is Sam Darnold. Now, that could go both ways, and I'm not trying to ride the fence here, but it really could, because Matthew Stafford has not played particularly well recently, but both of these teams had a bye week in week 6. That means this is going to be like, 13 straight weeks of football for this Vikings team, who just played an all-out 100% of the game spot against the Lions last week. Whereas Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams, a bunch of key defenders watched their game from the sidelines as Jimmy Garoppolo actually played quite well. It's just, there is something to be said about Matthew Stafford's been here before, and Sam Darnold hasn't. And Sam Darnold is the same guy who in the past has seen ghosts. So that's an interesting wrinkle to this game where I lean Rams at +1.5.
That's a great point, by the way, because Stafford played well in that game against the Lions last year. I don't doubt that Stafford's going to play well. I just think the diminished Cooper Kupp really, he just can't get open. Like if you've been watching these last couple of games.
Sad, yeah.
And it's so much forced to Puka Nacua.
Sure.
And the Sam Darnold who saw ghosts, I mean, that was, the guy would throw games away, 3 interceptions. He didn't throw any picks. It really was a bad game. It was different than the seeing ghost Darnold. People weren't open. He was getting blitzed a ton, and then he had a couple of really bad throws. Jefferson dropped a touchdown in the end zone. If that carries over again, I would think just the years and years of experience, and also a certain amount of hunger, and a certain amount of the contract that he potentially lost last week in that huge game. He does that in back-to-back games. Maybe there are different discussions with this whole J.J. McCarthy thing. There's going to be a lot on the line. I just don't know how sold I am on this version of the Rams. Very interesting, but I guess, remember what I told you about like this script and what's best for the NFL? They already got those montages of Dan Campbell saying, "We'll see you in 2 weeks."
Yeah,
ready.
That's a good point.
They already are editing. There's an editing. There's a guy on the editing floor changing Dan Campbell's voice. "We'll see you in 2 weeks." 2 weeks.
This is a fun game, though. I think it's a great way to close out the season.
And then it cuts to the preview of next week's playoff game. So,
sorry, I didn't know you were still going with that.
With that being said, we will see you in 1 week, because that concludes this episode of A Dave and a Dan, the playoff episode. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. You wanted it. You got it. So let us know. Let us know what you think. If you enjoyed the episode, if you despise my guts, what you think about the donkey costume. If you're looking forward to that, I certainly wouldn't be. I'm really, you'll know when I'm worried. I'm not even remotely worried yet. I'm just not, but I guess time will tell. Do us a favor, give us that engagement. Go check out Dave's stuff over at Odd Shopper. As always, very much appreciated. Be weary of joining the scam discords and whatnot, but you're free to do whatever the hell you want. Anyway, we'll see you next week. Take it easy. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Thanks for watching. Later.